Welcome back to Cortex. This time, I talked to David Pierce, who is The Verge's editor-at-large. I've been following David's work for years, from The Verge to when he went to Protocol, The Wall Street Journal, Wired. He's now back at The Verge again. He works on stuff that is of great interest to me, from the Vergecast and the podcast that they do over there. He's also a writer, a product reviewer, and I want to get into all of that with David today. I think it's really interesting to talk to someone who really works for the premier place in my mind for technology coverage, which is The Verge, and looking at how he thinks about the work that he does, how it fits into the overall mission and work of a site like The Verge, and how he thinks about product reviews and the impacts that they can have on the companies. Yes, we're going to talk about the Humane AI Pin. I really hope that you enjoy this episode of State of the Workflow. David, I want to get started by asking you, as I ask every guest on State of the Workflow, what is the most important device for you for getting your work done?
Okay, I knew you were going to ask me this, and everybody only gives you one of two answers.
Yep.
And I mean, the specific answer for me at this point in my life is the M4 Mac Mini that I'm using right now.
Okay.
I also have a MacBook Air that I use and like a lot. I also have a phone that I use and like sometimes. But a couple of years ago, I really started to go out of my way to try and make my computer a place instead of just a device. Like, I work from home, I work in the basement, I work a sort of hours-wise chaotic job. I'm in the news business. Things are always happening. Like, there's never a moment where it's very easy to just be like, I am not at work anymore. And so I have tried to confine as much of my work as I can to this spot and this device.
Okay.
So I leave the basement and I leave work. But what that means is that this Mac Mini is the center of all of my computing universe at this point.
Okay. I like that. So you said you're in the news business and it's chaotic. So something starts happening. Are you getting notifications on your phone? Like, you've got Slack on your phone and it's pinging you, and then you will then get up, come down to the basement and boot up the Mac?
It depends. We have a big newsroom full of much smarter people than I am who are on tap for that kind of stuff. And one thing I think The Verge is good at is quickly responding to news, but also routing it to the right person. So we have people who are much more able to quickly spin up on certain kinds of news than I am. But yeah, I have Slack notifications on for more things than I'm proud of. And I think I will do a lot of slacking from my phone. If it's a matter of we need to hash out how we're going to cover a story or who is the right person or what should the headline be, that I'll do sitting on the couch, 2 thumbs on my phone. But the minute it's I have to write something, or I have to really start doing serious research, or I need to start compiling stuff together, that's a computer task. And that's usually when I sprint down to the basement and fire up the Mac Mini.
And I assume, as well, looking at my own life, it's why I have a whole second space is that you once were doing it on a laptop and then realized you were doing it all the time, just working all the time everywhere.
Kind of, yeah. And I think especially, so I was on parental leave this summer, and I actually found that having a laptop for doing computer tasks that wasn't attached to all of my work stuff was really valuable. So could I do all of this on many fewer devices? Yes, of course, absolutely. But why? So what I found is having a laptop that is the thing that goes places with me, but is also the thing I can fire up when I'm sitting at the dining room table and want to write in my journal, that is not also the thing that has all of my work email synced to it and my Slack synced to it and whatever, was really useful. And that stuff is now being pulled back to being my work computer also as I get back to being more at work. I'm still technically part-time on parental leave. So I've been trying to keep that boundary more sort of coherent. But yeah, having a laptop that was a personal computer and having this be my work computer has been really helpful. I have never attempted to differentiate those things before, and I've done a better job of it the last few months, and I've actually really liked it.
So you are a man who does a lot of things at The Verge.
It's true.
I think you wear a lot of hats at this point. And so trying to just follow one workflow through with you in my preparation felt like an impossible task, because I can't even imagine where your day is going.
Well, it feels like chaos to me, so I'm glad it feels like chaos to other people.
Good. I have 3 areas with you that I want to look at, and I want to kind of follow each one of these through. And I actually want to start with product reviews, because you're the first person I've gotten to talk to on the show who reviews things in the way that you do. in a kind of, I would say, traditional gadget review way,
Sure.
right? Where like you're writing primarily. People make video, you make video, but there's just something different about a long article that's getting written on a website like The Verge. Reviewing is not all you do at The Verge. I know you have product reviewers, but there are still items that you review. Like, for example, I would guess famously, infamously, the Humane AI Pin, right?
Sure.
Obviously, it was a really popular review, stretched far and wide. So if we look at, say, that review, what led you to review that product?
It's a mix of I wanted to,
Yep.
and also I think it fell into an interesting gap at The Verge, which is a thing we've spent a lot of time talking about, right? I think we have people who are really great, really experienced smartphone reviewers. And I was a smartphone reviewer for a long time and frankly am out of touch. Like I haven't used the last 2 generations of Samsung phones, which makes me officially a bad smartphone reviewer.
Yeah, you're done now. That's it.
Yeah, it's over. We have people who do great work with wearables. We have people who are great laptop reviewers. These AI gadgets are kind of a new category and just fill some sort of weird Venn diagram of space. And I find them totally fascinating, right? Like I think a belief that I have that is different from a lot of people is I think there is absolutely room in the world for new kinds of gadgets. And I think it, in a funny way, the Meta Ray-Bans have proven me right more than anything else that has come out, that there is something that changes when you change the form factor that is meaningful and relevant.
A product that they say is for AI, but nobody cares about that part, realistically, who wears them.
No, I think fundamentally it's headphones and a camera, but it's headphones that don't look like headphones and it's a camera you don't have to hold in your hand. And I think both of those things are powerful and they change the actual nature of your experience with the device. So I think that is proof of sort of a small version of a big thing that I believe, which is there's like lots of new ideas about gadgets yet to be had. With those, it was just a mix of like, I want to see what it is like to live with this thing. And I also think I see the bigger story here, right? Because I think the thing that I've always said about product reviews, and I think the thing that's hard to do well with product reviews is to tell a story, right? Like to say, is this thing faster or slower? Does its battery last longer or not? Is, I think, a useful service to people, but is not, I think, the sort of best version of a product review. Many years ago, when I was running the reviews team at The Verge, the thing I would always say to people is like, we should be thinking about these as like feature stories, but the main character is a gadget. Sure. And it's like, what these things should be is adventure stories, right? Like I want to be out in the world with you. The thing that you, the author of this review, have that no one else has is you have this thing. You get to use it. You get to hold it. You get to live with it. And it's your job to help people understand what the world looks like through the eyes of this device. And in an AI world, like what an incredibly fun thing to try and figure out. Like it wound up being a real bummer that both the Humane AI Pin and the Rabbit R1 like really sucked.
Yeah.
Because if they were good, it's a whole different universe of stuff we can talk about, right? Like what does it mean that this stuff works for me this way? And what does it mean that I'm now interacting with technology in this way? And both of these just happen to be terrible.
Yeah.
And so it subverted a lot of that. But I really like when there's an opportunity to not just say, is this thing better or worse than its competition? Which again, incredibly valuable service to provide. But to say like, what does it mean that this exists? And what do I do with the fact that this exists? And those are the reviews that I like fight really hard to try and do.
So this one, maybe more than other reviews, I'm sure it takes a lot of effort to use the product. Like you really want to put the time in that you can to get a good result out of it, to get like a good set of ideas and to be able to tell that story. How long do you need to spend with a product before you feel like you could write a review? And also, I'm assuming sometimes you don't get the choice, essentially, of how much time you would get to spend with it. It's, if you want to hit an embargo, you have a limited time.
Yeah, the annoying but true answer to that question is always more than you have.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, if you give me a week, I can pretty quickly figure it out, right? And it depends on the kind of gadget. Like, frankly, at this point, like, you spend 3 hours with the iPhone and you sort of know the story of the iPhone, right? Yeah. Which I think is like the iPhone Air was such an interesting version of that this year, where like you pick up the iPhone Air and it is such a visceral thing that you have reviewed the iPhone Air in 4 minutes, right? And it's probably correct because you understand what the trade-offs are and it either feels that way in your hand or it doesn't. And that is the story. With some of these newer devices, the thing I always try and do is both like push the thing all the way to its limits, which you can do pretty quickly, right? It's like, okay, here's a list of things that it can do. I'm going to do all of them 10 times and see how it goes. That's like a
Yeah.
day of testing in many cases. You take a million pictures, you try all the stuff, run down the product spec sheet and try all the things. The harder part is actually trying to think about the device less and just live with it. Because I think the failing of a lot of product reviews, and a thing that's very hard as a product reviewer, is you just don't use the products like people do, right? Where it's like,
Yes.
you do a battery test of a phone and it's like, well, okay, sure, if I'm sitting here staring at the phone running benchmark tests for 11 straight hours, I'm going to get a lower battery life number than you do. People don't use their phones like that. And so I always try to do the like really aggressive testing for testing's sake stuff as fast as I can, and then just figure out what it looks like to live with this thing. And there's always a little bit of intentionality with it where it's like the kind of thing I would instinctively just pull out my phone to do. I have to go like, oh no, and then put my phone away and take out this weird AI device and see what happens. But the flip side of that is I think you start to get a much cleaner sense of how these things work and what it is like to actually have them in your life in a way that I think is really valuable. So that's always the thing. And there's no maximum on the amount of time that it would be helpful to have with that stuff, which is the real challenge.
When you're actually conducting a review, where are you recording your thoughts for it?
Depends on the day.
Sure.
So I'm a person who aspires to be a good member of society. And what I actually am is just like a true lunatic about note-taking apps. And I basically spend my life flitting between different tools that all seem like they're like this close to being what I need. One thing I am is a very diligent note taker. I think I am better than most people at like when I have a good idea, I write it down. When I have a thing I need to remember to do, I write it down. My problem is that I'm perpetually switching between apps. And so I never remember where I wrote anything down in a way that is incredibly unhelpful and unproductive. And I'm forever just like moving batches of notes from place to place. Right now, today, the answer is an app called Workflowy, which is basically an infinite outliner tool. And you can focus an outline sort of at any level of the outline. And that is the one that just sort of works the way that my brain does. And having something that I can just write a million bullets and then organize them as I go is very helpful. But I've also, I use Notion sometimes, which I think is like a remarkable piece of software that I kind of hate using. I use Craft, which I think is a really lovely piece of software that is missing a bunch of really obvious features. I used Evernote for a long time. Like I've used them all, but I am forever sort of all in on some note-taking app. And I don't take notes with all that much structure. I'm just sort of pouring stuff into a place. And that is like the thing that I have found most useful, especially as I'm testing a device, just knowing where all of my unordered thoughts are. And importantly, knowing that I can put them there easily, which makes me do it more often, is way more important than having some like really helpful folder structure that I can get back to later. Like I'll worry about the structure later. I just need to get everything out of my head so that I remember it later.
And at what point do you start writing? Is there a point where you're like, I'm done testing, now I'll start writing the review? Or does that differ? Okay, you're like, drawing a line, now it's time to write?
I mean, it's not that clean. I do a lot of testing before I start writing, but then there's always a lot of testing to do as I'm writing. I'll sort of write myself into a thing I haven't tested, and then it's like, oh, I have to go test that and see. So there's a lot of process, but I think no matter what I'm writing, whether it's a product review or a reported story or a narrative feature or whatever, I find it very hard to write until I know what I'm going to write. There was this guy, Chris Jones, who used to write for Esquire, who said that his way of writing was that he didn't like to start writing until he could have sat down at a bar stool next to you and told you the story. And that's kind of how I am too. I don't like to just sit down and start until I kind of know where I'm going to end. And often I don't end where I think I'm going to end, but I think often the stuff that at least the first draft of the stuff that I write, I could have basically said out loud to you in some shape or form before I started writing. And so when I'm reviewing something, I try to know kind of the shape of the story at the very least and how I feel and what conclusion I'm coming to before I start writing. Otherwise, I feel like I end up like a sort of AI model that like makes a bunch of slightly wrong decisions and ends up in some completely different place that I didn't mean to be. Like it helps me to know where I'm going to end when I begin.
How does editing work? Are you assigned like with an editor for a story like this who's going to go through and make suggestions?
I have different editors for different kinds of stories, but I have an editor whose job is at the beginning to kind of help me shape the broad structure of the story. And then at the end, to do everything from like make sure I'm not missing something to making sure the sentences are good to making sure the whole thing like makes sense just as a like object. And yeah, it differs depending on the kind of story. And some things require like a specific kind of expertise. So I'll have a specific editor for that. But yeah, there's almost always an editor kind of throughout the whole process, which just makes me better at everything.
Okay. Does video complicate things? So like the AI Pin had a video review as well as a written review. And I actually think that is I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there is a Verge video review that does not have a companion written article on the website.
I believe that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I know it can be the other way around. Sometimes there's just a written review. Do you enjoy it? Do you find it blocks you in any way? Does it open new opportunities for how you think about reviewing a product?
Video is really different. And I think the thing it took me too long to realize is that good video and good writing are not the same and in fact want really different things.
Yeah.
A thing I'd really like about video reviews is just that you can do so much showing and not telling, right? And especially with new kinds of things, when what I want you to understand is not just how long the battery lasts, but like what it looks like to be walking around with this thing and like how this actually fits into my life. You just communicate it differently on video than you can in other ways. Like I can actually show and not tell in so many ways. It's a really different process. And I think the way video works often is you have to write the script before you write the review, just because video takes a long time to make. And I can just sit with a blank Google Doc and write a review. So in a lot of ways, video speeds up the process, which can be tough. But one of the fun things, like I think the thing I really enjoyed about the Humane AI Pin review I got to do was you see so much of the testing in the review and in the video. And like so little of that is staged or like me repeating a thing that I've done before. It was just like, okay, let's vlog my testing essentially. And like, let's just spend a day running around trying to use this thing and figure out where it's useful and just show people what that's like. And I think to me, that's cool and exciting and useful. And again, I think like if you just want to know the specs of something or how it roughly stacks up to what you've had before, you're so spoiled for choice on the internet now. There are a million people doing great versions of that on every platform you can think of. The stuff comes out with the news and people spend 5 minutes with it. And it's like, okay, I can tell you what it feels like in my hand because I've held every iPhone since the first one. I can tell you what it feels like pretty reliably, pretty quickly. The question of like, what does it mean to actually live with this thing is different. And I think I've gotten much less interested in like sitting behind a desk and telling you something on video, which is kind of what a written review is always going to feel like, right? It's me sitting there sort of explaining something to you. Whereas like video, I increasingly want to feel like you're just with me. Like you're just over my shoulder as I'm using this thing and you get to experience it the same way that I did. And even if you don't see all of that and come to the same conclusion that I did, that's fine. Because my job is just to show you what it is like to be in the world of this thing. And that's the thing you can really only do on video. And I really enjoy it. Video is a ton of work, especially the way the Verge does it. Our video team has very high standards and I'm very bad. And so it's a lot of work, but I really enjoy it. And I think the best stuff we do, I think, is when we get to do all of that stuff together. Like really great photography, really great video, really great written reviews. Like that is the completest version of a review that we are able to do. And I really like when we get to.
Do you ever think about like the audience experience, right? Like I think there is a habit with reviews, written reviews. People just jump to the end, see the score, read the conclusion. I don't know if that exists in video the same way. I don't know if people will like jump into the end of the video. I don't know, but like I wonder if maybe they take more of the review in if it's a video than maybe if it was an article.
I think there's probably something to that. I think that's a compelling like platform case for YouTube in general, right?
Yeah.
And it's super annoying when all you want is a piece of information, right? When it's like, I just need to know how to get the tire off of my car. And I have to watch an 11-minute video. And actually what I'd rather do is read a paragraph of text. But the flip side, I think you're right. Like ability to sort of bring somebody on a journey with you on video is just so different. Like I just have so much more control over it as the storyteller, because
Yeah.
odds are you are going to press play and it's going to start at the beginning, right? And that comes with huge tasks for me to do. I have to be interesting the first second. I have to get you to keep watching every single time. And there's so much other stuff for you to watch that the penalty for that is super high, because you can get the gist of an article in 10 seconds in the way that you can't get the gist of a video in 10 seconds. The upside of that is huge because I can do more things and I can bring you with me. But it does, I think, make the work a lot harder because I can just lose you at any moment.
This episode is brought to you by the Subtle range from Cortex brand. It is that time of year, Cortexans. The Subtle range, including our tee, hoodie, sweater, and a new item, is available for you. The Subtle range is our line of high-quality apparel that is designed to be simple, tasteful, and genuinely wearable every single day. That is not just a marketing thing that I'm saying. You would see me wearing something from this range pretty much every day. Today, I am wearing our new tan color Subtle tee. We have a new wonderful tan. It's a kind of creamy color across all of our products. It's a wonderful addition. The blue Cortex logo really looks great on it. Over the years, we've built up a small collection of products that we offer. Every piece is something that I personally reach for in my wardrobe, as do thousands of other Cortexans. We have two styles of t-shirt. We have the lightweight cut, which is a soft, perfectly fitted and easy to wear with anything t-shirt, and then the heavyweight tee, which is my favorite. It's a more oversized, elevated fit. It's the kind of shirt that feels a little bit more special the moment that you put it on. I just love the muted colors and different fit, but they are incredible no matter what tee that you go for. Then there's the sweatshirt, which is a classic. Clean, super comfortable, looks great dressed up or down. And we have the lightweight hoodie, which is perfect for layering and works all year round. This year, we're introducing something completely new to the Subtle range, the quarter zip pullover. It takes everything we love from our other products, the high quality fabrics, the understated design, and it brings it into a new silhouette. It is smart, versatile, and perfect for office environments or anywhere that you want to look put together without having to try too hard. When we started exploring this option, I had no idea how much I was going to love it. I only have one of them right now, and I cannot wait to buy one in every single color. The Subtle range is only available for a limited time. We open up sales for the range just once a year, and that window is only a few weeks long. So if you've been thinking about picking something up, now's the time to do it. Please get your orders in by November 18th of this year. You can check out the full collection, including the new quarter zip, at cortexbrand.com. Please go and check it out. I love these products. I'm sure that you will. It supports me. It supports the show. It supports us here at Cortex Brand. We'd really appreciate it. And I know that you're going to love it. That is at cortexbrand.com. I mentioned scores. How do you feel about scoring? Have you been doing it for so long that it's not so much of a thing anymore? Or is there ever a time when you wish you didn't have to do that?
Every time. I should say this is not the official opinion of The Verge, but it is the official opinion of many people who work at The Verge. Review scores are useful and horrible.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think it is important and helpful as a reviewer to be forced to come to a conclusion. I think you see so much quote unquote criticism that has no point and arrives nowhere and just explains what a thing is and then is like, well, I leave it up to you to decide. And I think that is cowardly, frankly.
Sure.
As the person tasked with deciding whether or not this is good, forcing you to put a number on it is a forcing function in a way that I think is really, really useful. I think 1 to 10 is not a perfect system for communicating that. And the problem is, I don't know that there is one, right?
There
5 stars is not that thing, because what does 4 stars mean? A lot of people would say anything other than 5 stars means it's bad.
Yeah.
We just don't agree on what the numbers mean, which makes the numbers pointless. I have always really liked Netflix's thing where they have the 2 thumbs up for love it, the 1 thumb up for like it, and the thumb down for didn't like it. I actually think that is the closest to like a universally understandable system that I've ever seen. And I like genuine kudos to Netflix for pulling that off. And this is the thing we struggle with all the time. Like Jake, our executive editor, he's going to get mad at me for saying this, but he has like semi-seriously advocated for having negative numbers for forever. He's like, what if the score went from -10, which is like, I absolutely hate its guts, to 0, which is like perfectly neutral, all the way
I
up to 10.
say, I understand that. That seems hellish.
It's a completely unhinged idea. But you can see why it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like for us, it's like, okay, I think the Verge's main problem is we give too many things 7s. But the reason we give so many things 7s is because most things are fine, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but if I give something a 5, even if I can show you the webpage where it says 5 means it's fine, people hear 5 out of 10 and immediately think it's a disaster. So
Yes.
it's like we have this just, I think, impossible translation problem that makes scores hard.
Yep.
And the problem is, it's what you said. It's that so many people come to the thing, they read the score, they read the conclusion, they leave. That it's like, I think if you come to the thing, you read the review, you look at the pictures, you read the score, and you read the conclusion, if you still don't know why I picked that score, I have failed as the reviewer.
Yep.
But if you click on the review, look at the score, decide what you think that score means, and leave, that's your problem.
Yeah.
And at some point, I've just had to let go of that. Like, if we're just going to miscommunicate, so be it. So I think the reason we haven't gotten rid of scores is because I really do think it is useful, both as a reviewer and as an audience, to force the piece to decide.
Yep.
Even if the decision is always and necessarily imperfect, I'm still pro scores for that reason alone, because you can't sit on the fence when you have to put a score on it. And that's good.
I see a lot of this discourse in video games. I'm more of a consumer of video game culture than video games themselves.
Fair.
It's just like a thing that I enjoy. And at the moment, there is like a thing seems to be going on that if something is an 8 out of 10, it is bad, like is how the audience will perceive it. And I think part of the problem, especially in video games, is nobody reviews a 2 out of 10 video game. And I do expect there's a similar thing in technology. Like, there is just kind of no time to review stuff that is below 5 in the scale. Something has to be a surprise that it is below 5 in the scale. Like, I imagine there are many products that you could pick out to review that would be 3 out of 10. But
Sure.
Does anyone really want to read that review of like some random piece of technology that you found on like Temu and it's like a 3 out of 10? Like, it's just not really in service of your audience, and then this becomes the problem over time.
It feels like punching down in some ways, right?
Exactly.
Where it's like, okay, I could find a thing that somebody made on Kickstarter that no one is going to buy and is not relevant to anybody and isn't good, and I could write 1,000 words about how terrible it is. I don't know that it accomplishes anything for anybody, like including our audience, which is the folks I'm actually in service to, right? Like, hearing me be mad about something you would have never heard of otherwise and is actually completely irrelevant to your life, it doesn't really accomplish anything, which was, to be frank, the reason it was interesting that both the Humane and the Rabbit were so bad. Was like, it was that rare chance to be like, these things are in culture. People are talking about them. They matter. They are interesting. They are relevant. Like, I think Emma Roth on our team just wrote a review of Telly, the free TV with a big bar of ads at the bottom. Another good example, right? Of like, that's a thing that is out there and people are talking about it and people are curious about it. And it also, like, if it's good, it's interesting that it's good. And if it's bad, it's interesting that it's bad. And there's bigger reasons that it matters if this thing is good or bad. Those are the things where it's like, okay, I will take the time to write about why this sucks. And frankly, like, it feels bad. I think everybody who reviewed the Humane AI Pin, which I think was run by a bunch of people who took themselves too seriously, but was like largely a company of smart people doing their best to do something really interesting and ambitious. It feels bad to be like, this sucks and you're all idiots. But again, at the same time, like, my job is to tell the reader whether this is worth your money or not. And that was a pretty clear answer. But in many cases, it's like, if the question of should you buy this or not is never going to be put in front of you, or the answer is so transparently no that we don't even need to talk about it, to me, it just feels like punching down to be like, look at this thing, it sucks. And just, I don't know, it feels bad. But to your point about the 8 out of 10 thing, I think about this with like the sort of star creep on places like Uber and stuff. Like, if you're an Uber driver and you have a 4.7 star rating, which by every possible conversion you could do is excellent.
You're essentially perfect on a 5-star scale.
You might get fired at 4.7 stars. Like, it's in their rules that if you get below that, you might get fired. That's ridiculous, right? So it's like, if I give you a 3 out of 5 review, which is a 6 out of 10, which is a 60 out of 100, which is like fine, right? Like, it's fine. I am saying explicitly, I think this person should be fired from their job. And that's just stupid. So we've ended at this place where like it's either 5 or it sucks. And at that point, what are we accomplishing?
Yeah, it shows that the Uber rating 5-star rating system is actually just broken. Like they need a new system, right?
Yes,
Because clearly it doesn't work.
100%.
People tell you just give me 5 stars, and it's like 5 stars is the default rating for an Uber driver. It's like this doesn't make any sense.
No,
like,
and if that's the case, then what are we doing?
I probably had like a handful of actual 5-star experiences in an Uber, right? But like I'll rate everyone top. It's like you start out at 5, and all you have to do is something terrible, like I don't know, and then you drive into a lamppost, and maybe I'll knock you down to a 4. Like you know, it's not really that great. You mentioned I know we're talking about Humane, but you mentioned like the team and the people. The Humane AI Pin had an interesting effect where it was like at a time when there was conversation about reviews kind of killing products.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 2 most impactful pieces of journalism on this was you and Marcus Brownlee's review. And Marquez took a lot of this, I think, because he was also a thing about a car, right? Because of the Fisker Ocean, like a similar kind of thing happened. When you're working on a review like this, and you know it's a high-stakes review, and you know it's going badly, do you think about the impact that review could have?
You can't not. I'm definitely cognizant of what it means to write this stuff and publish it to a large audience. And I think everyone should be, and anyone who says they're not is either like lying or a sociopath. You just can't let it change the work, right?
Yep.
The idea that reviewers kill products is ridiculous. Like bad products kill products. If I had savaged the Humane AI Pin, but everybody else had said, oh my gosh, this is the greatest gadget that would have ever existed, I would have looked like an idiot, and the AI Pin would have done fine.
Yeah.
That thing failed because it was bad, not because I said it was bad. And it's the same with the Fisker Ocean. It's like the bad products are bad because they're bad. And it's my job to say that they're bad when they're bad. You just try to go into it and not hold a grudge and not, hold anything against it. And I think one of the interesting things about the Humane AI Pin in particular was that company was so proud of itself and was so self-serious and was talking this incredibly high-minded game about replacing the smartphone and how it was going to be the biggest thing in the world. And it was ex-Apple people who were like clearly on this path to like, we're going to be the next app. And there is such an impulse to want to like poke fun at that and knock them down a peg and sort of write the scathing takedown. And the thing I try hard not to do is write a takedown for the sake of writing a takedown. We talk about this at The Verge all the time. Like one of the great advantages that we have is that we test the products, right? Like we see the end of the story in the same way that like if you do sports journalism, the team either wins or they lose. And the story has an ending. Either this thing you're trying to do worked or it didn't. And for us, that's product reviews. Like I either get to say all of this high-minded stuff that they're saying, all of this ambition that they have, all of these like weird videos that they're making about how they're going to change the world. Either it did or it didn't. And at some point, you have to have the courage of your convictions to just say out loud what the answer is. I know what it means. And the thing I have always tried to do is like, I was trained to say these things to people's faces. Like when I worked at the Wall Street Journal, one of the Wall Street Journal's rules is no surprises, which means that if you're going to write an unpleasant story about a person, you have to call that person and say out loud to them every single unpleasant thing you're about to say to them.
I think that is very good. Like
it is good. And it makes you do your job better because I have to be willing to say to you everything I'm about to say about you. And B, it means I have to be so certain and so right and so backed up and so sourced that I am willing to say all those things to you.
You have full conviction in what you're trying to get across at that point, right? Like if you're willing to be in an embarrassing, awkward situation in telling someone that their product is bad, you would feel very convinced that you were right in that scenario, right?
That's right. And so I think in cases like this, and it can be a little tricky because like with certain things, like how much do you give away and when, and how much do you let companies try to like front run what you're going to say? And so there are tricky balancing acts, but I think in general, the idea of I shouldn't write anything I wouldn't say to the founders of these companies has largely steered me in the right directions and has also made me unafraid to say some pretty harsh things to people who run companies.
This episode of Cortex is brought to you by our friends at Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform that is designed to help you stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or scaling a business, Squarespace will give you everything you need to claim a domain, showcase your offerings for a professional website, grow your brand, and get paid all in one place. One of the things that I love about Squarespace is how easy they make it to design the website that you want to build. So you don't need to know a bunch of code. You don't need to try and guess as to how to do it. You don't need to go digging through a bunch of search results to try and find answers to questions for how you would do such a thing. It's all super easy. They have these beautiful templates that you can get started with, or you can use their Blueprint AI system to just type in the type of website you're looking for, and it will then make a bunch of recommendations for you based on your industry and goals. But the thing that I love about it most is that once you've got a starting point, you can customize it so easily. It's drag and drop tools, selectors, sliders, and you can see everything updating in real time as you're making the changes, so you can see exactly how your site's going to look. But then once you've got it out and designed and ready and good to go, there's a few things under the hood that Squarespace offer that I think are really powerful and make a big difference to how you're going to run your website. One is integrated SEO tools, because nobody wants to build a beautiful website for it never to be found. You want people to find your website when they're searching in search engines, and that is why every single Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and everything you need for perfect optimization for search engines. Basically, people are going to find your site through search engine results, which is what you want. You can also make the best decisions for your business with their analytics system. You can keep track of all of the stats that matter with an intuitive built-in set of analytics tools. It's super easy for you to review your website traffic, learn where to focus your engagement, and track revenue from bookings, invoice, product sales, and more. Go and try this out for yourself today by going to squarespace.com/Cortex. You can sign up for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch it to the world, use the offer code Cortex. This will save you 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That is squarespace.com/Cortex with the offer code Cortex, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of this show and all of Relay. So looking at your Humane review, that's more of a negative conversation, right? Like that product did not work and everything fell apart. But you every week publish a newsletter called Installer at The Verge, which is unabashed positivity, up and down, left and right. It is like, here's just a bunch of stuff that I like, and I would like you to know about it. That's how I think of Installer. I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite newsletter. It's awesome.
Thank you. That's really nice.
How much time do you spend in your week playing with new stuff?
A lot.
It feels immense.
It's
like
a lot.
When I just read the part that is like, here are all the things I've been doing this week, which is how you start. I don't know how you're fitting it in. So,
I mean, I'd be lying if I said part of the idea of this newsletter was not to just formalize me screwing around with new apps all day. That like now this is a thing I get to do for my job.
Actually, for my work at this point.
It's for
argue.
business.
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, it's a thing I do anyway. Like I enjoy that kind of thing. To some extent, it's also been a really fun thing that has forced me to do more of it. Like I'm not really by nature a gamer, quote unquote. Like I play some video games, but I mostly play like the same 2 or 3 all the time. But having a thing that forces me to just go like download a bunch of new games every week from Apple Arcade and just goof around with them and see what's fun has been really fun. And it's the kind of thing that is like, I could either scroll on Reddit for an hour or I could go like try out a bunch of new games. I enjoy the process of trying new things. And I also think I'm an old guy now. And so like I am learning new tricks to not get set in my ways, which I think both as a person and as a journalist, getting set in your ways is death. And I'm just trying to avoid that at all costs. And so I've just developed a thing that is sort of forcing me to always get out of my comfort zone, which is really fun. And I think part of that energy is like what shows up in the newsletter. And I think is a thing people really respond to, which is awesome. It is sometimes hard. There are definitely times where it's like, oh God, this is the show everybody's watching. I have to watch it so that I can write 2 coherent sentences about it. And it's 10 hours of television. And it's not always delightful, but it is a thing that I have done. But then every once in a while, it's like, oh, I have to watch K-pop Demon Hunters because everybody's talking about it and I should probably say something about it in the newsletter. Turns out K-pop Demon Hunters rules. So like I've been exposed to a lot of good stuff I wouldn't have otherwise because I feel like I need to expose myself to it. And that's been really fun. Like one thing the Installer audience is super into that I am not generally super into is like anime and manga stuff sort of in general. And I've been exposed to tons of that from emails that I've gotten from people and new things that are coming out that I want to like make sure I'm aware of. And it has just like expanded my own cultural boundaries in such cool ways. It does take a lot of time. And there are times when it feels like work, but I would say much more often it is like not a hard chore to like play a fun new game or watch a new thing on Netflix to see if I like it.
What are you keeping your eye on to know what the things are that you should be looking at? Like, what are your sources of helping keep your kind of finger on the pulse?
So I'll tell you the reason I started this newsletter is because I kept looking for it and never found it. And
Right.
it was just like, what I want is just like a compendium of cool stuff this week that I should check out. And I was like, well, this doesn't exist. And I was like, oh, I should probably just make this. It's a mix of things. There are a lot of good people out there doing curation stuff. I find a lot of stuff from Jason Kottke. I find a lot of stuff from Andy Baio. John Gruber is perpetually linking interesting stuff. There's like the Maria Popovas of the world. There are a million great linky newsletters. I read one called A Thing or Two all the time. There's one called Downtime that I really enjoy. Clive Thompson writes a link blog called Linkfest that I read a lot of. I do a lot of like curating curators who are already doing wonderful work and finding interesting stuff. There are a lot of little tricks. Like there's a website called TV Insider that does a good job of just having a calendar of here are all the TV shows coming out this week. There's a site called Real Good that does the same thing with stuff on streaming. It's just like, here's all the new stuff that drop on streaming this week. So I check that once a week to see what's coming. There's a lot of little tricks. Reddit is a useful thing. I have a multi-Reddit, which is a thing people don't know exists.
I've never heard this word.
So a multi-Reddit, I actually don't know if this is still officially a feature that exists, but I have a bunch of them. It's basically you just combine a bunch of subreddits into a single feed. So it's not like my Reddit homepage. I went and just added 10 subreddits or whatever to a thing that I called installer. And I just go to that multi-Reddit and it is just a running feed of just those 10 subreddits.
Right.
So I don't have to go to each individual one. I'm just like, these are the ones that I find installer stuff from, and I load them in that way. Very helpful. I've never, ever seen Reddit officially promote this feature. I'm not even sure it technically still exists, but I use it every week, so it's great.
It's probably something part of the old Reddit. It's very Yahoo Pipes-like.
Yeah, exactly. I also like, again, installer is a bad excuse to keep scrolling social media, trying to find stuff. The Verge team is very good at this. Like, this would be a much harder job if I wasn't in a newsroom full of people dropping links in Slack all week. There's a lot of it that I'm just stealing from other people.
I would imagine a lot of your colleagues are sending you stuff too. It's like, David,
yes,
this would be good. You should look at this.
One of my favorite things is I get like sheepish text messages from my friends who are like, I found this thing. This is awkward, but like I thought it might be cool for installer. And it warms my heart every single time somebody sends that. And I get more and more of those all the time.
I imagine you're also getting just pitch barraged now.
Yes, it's a lot. And I think I would rather have more of it than less. And one great thing about running this newsletter is I bet my test flight is better than anyone else's. I think there is a good chance that I am in more cool app betas than any other single person on planet Earth. And it rules. And it is one of the great fun things that has happened as a result of writing this newsletter is like people want to tell me about their new things. So I would certainly take that over the other way. And like I get pitched all the time anyway, just by virtue of like what I do for a living. I'm sure you do too. Like just comes with the territory. So I don't know that actually installer has made it meaningfully worse. The biggest difference now is a thing I think is very cool is when I will link to someone and they will get like a noticeable uptick in their app downloads or whatever because I linked to them. And a fun thing about it is like it's always a mystery for them where it came from because this is like weird internet nerdery, but clicks on an email don't register as traffic coming from anywhere in most analytics systems. So I just get to send people this like magical, unknowable spike of traffic sometimes, which is awesome. And I love it. And it's like, it's a thing I take very seriously. It's like a thing I have always said about installer is like the goal is for people to click the links. Like if you read the newsletter and don't click any links, I have failed. The job is for you to click the links. And so the click-through rate on the newsletter is nuts. Like it's super high and it makes me so happy. It's like, that's what it's there for. So I am able to send traffic to places. And I think that's very cool. What it means is I get a lot of like individual app developers who are like, I have been working on this thing for 2 years. I love it. I can't get any word out. It's so hard to market. Can you please tell people about that? And that is a thing I want to say yes to every single time because like I want to help people who are making things, but also the responsibility is not that, right? Like I am not a list of classifieds for you to check out. Like the newsletter is my taste in a very real way. And as much as I want to help people, like that remains sort of the North Star. But I will say I found a bunch of things that I ended up linking to and liked from pitches. So like no complaints. But I continue to feel bad for like every teenager who is like, I spent my summer making this app. I think it's so cool. I can't get anybody to download it because the app store is a disaster. Can you help? And I'm like, no. That feels bad.
Yeah, that sucks. Do you use different tools for writing the newsletter and reviews and stuff like that? What do you use to actually do the work? I am going to assume it's Google Docs. Maybe you will tell me I'm wrong.
I try really hard to not be precious about my writing environment. I have bonkers systems for lots of things, but my job requires that I write a lot, and I have tried to be pretty loose about where I write. So like I write a lot in Google Docs. That's like how we do our editing process at The Verge. So at some point, everything ends up in Google Docs. So I often will just start in Google Docs. There's also this app called Typora that is just a markdown editor that I love. It is the best copy and paste tool I've ever used. Like you can just take stuff from anywhere, copy it, paste it in Typora, and then paste it out somewhere else. And the formatting just always magically works. And I can't figure out why, but like everywhere else that you're like, I try to copy and paste and all the formatting breaks, put it into Typora first and then put it where it's supposed to go. And it always seems to work.
Huh.
I don't understand it, but it is magical.
It's a very niche use case, but I will be downloading this app now.
It's real. Yeah. So I use that for a lot of things. We use WordPress. I write in WordPress a lot. I try not to be particularly precious about where I write because like I know a lot of people have very specific sort of writing environments and like I write in this specific place with this specific thing. And I used to be a person who was like, I would really like to like pour a glass of red wine and write late at night. I have 2 kids now. My life just does not allow for that. So it's like I need to write whenever I have 20 minutes to write. Yep. And I have worked hard to be able to do that at the drop of a hat.
How does it feel writing an email newsletter compared to something that goes on the web? Are there things you like and don't like about it? I know Installer has a home on the Verge's website, but it is an email newsletter, essentially. So you want people to consume it. Like, obviously, like an easy one is if you make an error, you can't change it when it's in someone's inbox. But like, are there other things that you like and don't like about the format difference?
Yeah. If you ever want to juice engagement on your email newsletter, just make a really glaring typo, like in the 3rd paragraph, and 1,000 people will email you about it. It's good times.
And then send a second email that says, sorry, that is the best open rate.
Exactly. Yeah. I screwed up, period. Like 100% open rate. It's huge. No, I think the biggest difference for me has been that I can write to a person. And it's a thing I really try to do deliberately in the newsletter is I write the word you a lot in Installer because it's like it both is addressed to you, a person, and it is also intended for you, a person. And like it doesn't matter that there are lots of people reading it. Like when the thing works, it should feel like it is for you. And I think that's just not an expectation you have when you land on a website. Like you go to a website being like, here's a thing that they made and I'm going to go look at it. But an email, like it should be written to you. And I think like I notice the difference in emails that feel like a person writing an email as opposed to feeling like somebody is emailing me an article. And they're just different things. The tone is different. The form of address is different. The vibe, like if I wrote in the like paragraph length that I write Verge features at in emails to my friends, I would not have any more friends to email. And so it's just like what it should feel like to go through it in my inbox is a thing I think about a lot. And if I just wrote you 2,000 words of text, it would feel like a really long email and not like an interesting article, which is why like there's lots of bullets and there's lots of links and we break up sections. And it's like this thing should feel breezy and lively in the way that good email does. And that like you can get away with when I've gone to an article to read the article, I just come at it with different expectations.
Well, I love Installer.
Thank you.
It was a huge influence, probably the influence on me starting a blog on my own again.
Which I'm so glad you did. I love The Enthusiast.
Thank you so much. It's just, it was a reminder to me that you can publish things on the internet that are essentially just intended to be positive.
So when I went on parental leave this summer, Jay Peters on our team took over Installer for this summer and did a great job. And the main note I gave him when I was leaving was like, it is super important to me that you remember that it is okay to like things.
Yes.
And that truly was the whole point of Installer. And it is like, the job of that newsletter is not to have big, heady thoughts about the world. It's not to comment on everything. The whole thing is explicitly built to just be like, here are things that I like. And if I don't like them, I'm not going to tell you about them.
Yep.
They're just not going to be here.
Yep.
And I think we need more of that in the world. Like, we spend a lot of time talking about why things suck. And to me, it's like, what if we just pointed at better things? I so much more enjoy championing good things than tearing down bad things. And both are good and valuable things, but I think it's easy to fall towards tearing down bad things, and I would much rather spend more of my time championing good things.
Yeah, because I imagine you're similar to me. Of like, you're going to hear me talk about the bad things. Like,
Sure.
I will talk about them on my podcasts. I don't need to talk about them everywhere. Like, you'll get it. You'll get my whole set of opinions, but I don't need to give you all of them in every place.
Right. Yeah, I think different things can be for different things, and I think that's okay. And I do occasionally, like, I'll get emails from people who are like, really mad about the privacy policy of something that I link to. And I think that is actually good and valuable feedback. But the response to that is, I shouldn't have included it at all, not I have a responsibility to tell you all the reasons this sucks, right? And I like that personally a lot more, where it's like, actually, this is all going to be votes for something. and all my votes against are just not here.
Yep.
And I think like we all could use a break from that.
This episode of Cortex is brought to you by Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness level, it can feel like an uphill battle. That's why I'm pleased to let you know that Fitbod is an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan that is just for you, so it's going to work for you. Because everybody has their own path to personal fitness. That is why Fitbod uses data to make sure they customize things to suit you perfectly. Fitbod will adapt as you improve, so every workout remains challenging, pushing you to make the progress that you want. Because your muscles improve when they work together, when your entire musculoskeletal system is being understood and pushed to the best. So overworking some muscles while underworking others can negatively impact your results. So Fitbod tracks your muscle fatigue and recovery to design a well-balanced workout routine. They store all of this information, including your body, your experience, your environment, your goals, information about all of that. These are all stored in your Fitbod gym profile. It will track your muscle recovery so you'll avoid burnout and keep up your momentum. It will build the best possible workout for you. They have analyzed billions of data points, fine-tuned by certified personal trainers, to make sure that they're going to give you a well-balanced workout routine. You're not going to get bored. The app will mix up your workouts with new exercises, rep schemes, supersets, and circuits. And one of the things I love about Fitbod is when I get a new exercise, one I haven't done before, I can watch one of the demonstration videos right inside of the app to make sure that I'm performing the movement perfectly. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive. Fitbod is just $15.99 a month or $95.99 a year, but you can get a massive 25% off your membership by signing up at fitbod.me/cortex. If you sign up for an annual plan, you'll be making a commitment to yourself and you'll be getting a wonderful discount with 25% off. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/cortex. Once again, that is fitbod.me/cortex for 25% of your membership. Thanks to Fitbod for their continued support of this show and Relay. So from the outside, it feels like your main work now is the Vergecast and associated podcasts at the Verge. At least that's how I feel like I get my main output of you.
That's probably right.
Like, I'm sure you're doing tons of stuff behind the scenes, but I would expect the Verge audience, they're mostly interacting with David Pierce through the podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's especially been true recently, but I think it's a function of how powerful podcasts are that it feels that way, right? Like, I still write a lot. I'm still all over the website, but the relationship I have with our audience and the Verge community is so much deeper and richer because people are seeing my face and hearing my voice all the time, that it is like, definitely I have gone from being like a writer who occasionally people hear on a podcast to being like a podcaster who sometimes writes for the Verge, which has been a really weird thing to wrap my own brain around. But it's true. It's both like, it is my main job. Like, when they hired me back at the Verge, I was like, okay, I'm going to do lots of things. I've been here a long time. Like, what is the primary thing you need me to do here? And the universal answer was the podcast. So like, I take that very seriously. And I do think it has become more of my job over time. Yeah.
It is very funny to me. I've had the pleasure of working with and being friends with so many writers who became podcasters or have podcasts, and there seems to be a real struggle of writers accepting that their podcast is, it's like, it feels like a difficult thing. You're in a new medium now, whether you like it or not.
Totally.
You know, I feel like the thing is like you're on every episode of the Vergecast. You're not writing every Verge article. And so I think that
That's right.
in people's minds, it kind of like adapts them to where they are.
Well, and it's like, I'm sure you've had this experience too, but like one of the wildest things that happens to me is around like Spotify Wrapped time, or in like the thing that Pocket Cast does where it'll be like, here's how many hours you spent listening to this podcast. And people will send us screenshots of like, you listened to 110 hours of the Vergecast this year. And it is like genuinely like mind bending. Like I spent 110 hours with almost nobody in the past year. And it has taken me time to wrap my head around both how wild that is and how like huge a responsibility that is to be like, no, we're friends in a meaningful, real way. I exist in your brain as a person that you know and you spend a lot of time with. And I have to take that super, super seriously. But it is nuts. Like the difference between you coming and spending like 15 minutes reading a thing that I wrote and then going on about your day versus like I'm there with you when you walk your dog every morning is like night and day different. And I'm still working on like really going with like what that feels like. But I'm sure you get the same thing where people are like, I know everything about you because I listened to your podcast. And it's like, that's so cool and so weird all at the same time.
The first time that these things started happening to me, I was very taken aback by it. I couldn't get my head around it. And then over time realized that it's actually a superpower because I can have a conversation with people that listen to my podcasts knowing that they know the things that I'm talking about. I don't need to explain it.
Totally.
It's like you just know. And like that ends up becoming a tool. Shows like ours, you know, like the Vergecast, like most, like say a show like Upgrade that I do with Jason Snell, they're essentially conversations between friends around a certain topic. But in that, you're going to get us making fun of each other, talking about our lives. And I think one of the reasons that these types of shows kind of give such a connection to the listener is because typically the only time you hear those conversations, they're actually conversations you're a part of, like in your life. And so you are inviting us into your brain for a couple of hours, maybe more, a week, every week. Like there's no way that doesn't alter your brain chemistry in some way.
100%. I think that's such a huge responsibility, right? And I think about all the podcasts that I used to listen to and then stop listening to. And one of the reasons you stop is that you don't feel anything progressing. You're like, okay, I've heard these people say this same thing over and over and over again. And that's like, there's a version of that is like just friendship, right? Like you spend enough time with somebody, you've heard all their stories and you know what they're talking about. But it's like, I think one of the reasons I have spent more and more of my time doing the podcast is because I think it would be really easy to spend less and less of my time doing the podcast. And you settle into a rhythm. And it's like, it is true that one of the reasons people like the Vergecast is they just like hearing Nilay and me hang out, right? And like Nilay is one of my very closest friends. He was a groomsman in my wedding. Like I love that man to pieces, and he's super fun to hang out with because he's a doofus and a genius. And like we like hanging out with each other, and I think it's fun to watch us hang out with each other. I don't think that's enough, and I never want to settle into that because I think that's how you hemorrhage your audience over time, and I also think that's just a bad use of people's time. So it's like for me, it's like okay, how do we keep that feeling and that vibe and do things that are bigger and more ambitious and different? And I think like, you know, everybody talks about how Reply All was the greatest podcast in the history of the internet, but I think like an underrated thing the Reply All folks did really well was both like unbelievably tightly produced and just felt like two people hanging out with each other, making fun of each other. Peak Radio Lab was like that. And there have been a few of these shows that have done a really good job of being natural and normal and human and relaxing, and they didn't feel like school, but also like really gave you something.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I strive for that is really hard to do. And is like, that's the fun project that we're forever poking at is like, how do I do a thing that isn't just we sit down and hang out because we're fun to hang out with, but that is much, much more than that at the same time.
I could not agree more. And I can tell the work that goes on because I do the work too, right? Of like, it's easy to just sit down and have a conversation about the things. The hard work is the producing beforehand and the editing afterwards.
Totally.
And all of that goes into making the podcast be good. You could just sit down, turn on the microphones,
Yeah.
and you'll have a fun time. But you're right. Over time, you'll lose people. They'll lose interest. You're not really moving forward. And ultimately, people will just go find something else. Because you build the connection based on the fun, but there also has to be something that people take away that feels valuable at the end.
Yeah. And it's like, I think all the time about like, what if this is your first ever episode? And there's so many Vergecast episodes that are just utterly impenetrable to somebody who has not been listening to the show.
I've given up on that. It's like at a certain point, I can't help. I just have to hope, just like you'll get at least 50% of what we're talking about.
Right.
And that maybe that's enough. I don't know.
And it's the thing we struggle with all the time, right? Because it's like, okay, if I'm going to define my terms every time I use them, it's going to start to feel sort of boring and alienating to the people who have been listening.
Your actual audience, right?
Right. Like you want to be in on the joke. And I mean, there are people who've been listening to the Vergecast for 14 years who are like in so many real ways in on the joke.
Yeah.
And we make like 8-year-old references that we then get emails about because people know, and that's the stuff, right? Like, but then I'm like, okay, and especially now that we're doing video and it's on YouTube and there are a lot of people who are encountering us for the first time. It's very hard to grow a podcast. And one of the reasons it's very hard to grow a podcast is because most people don't start at episode 1 because holy God, why would they? And it's super hard to just jump in the middle of somebody else's friendship and figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a thing we think a lot about. It's like, how do we keep this feeling the way that it does, both for us, which is really fun to make, but also like means something to this big audience of people we've had for a long time, but also is like even discernible to new people. And it's really hard.
If you work that out, please text me.
I will.
I would love to know. I kind of gave up. So I get the sense from the Vergecast that there is a large team on this project. What are you doing to kind of keep everyone on the same page? Are you sharing calendars and tasks and show notes and Trello boards? Like, what is the collaboration project here?
Messy and ongoing. I mean, the good news is we have an amazing team. It's mostly 4 of us that make the show kind of on an ongoing basis every week. And shouts to Eric and Brandon and Travis, who are the ones who actually make the show every week. But we have this big team of people. Again, like I've been asked the question before, like, oh, why not leave and go do something independent? And people are like, oh, you should do Installer on Substack. Like, I would be so much worse at all of this without the team. Like, I always like team sports because it's like more fun for me to make things with my friends than make them alone. But also like, holy God, are there other smart people who are better at this than I am who do all this stuff that I can't or don't want to do. But to your specific question, we currently don't have a great system for tracking stuff and it drives me crazy. I can't get anybody to use Notion with me. The Verge's official productivity platform of choice is Airtable, which is a horrible piece of software that everyone who uses should feel bad about.
I don't like it. We've tried it. I mean, okay, so our chief revenue officer really uses Airtable, and if I ever need anything to go in Airtable, I just send her a Slack like, can you just put this in Airtable, please? I guys can't work it out. And every time I touch it, something goes wrong, and then messages start getting sent in Slack accidentally. And it's like I start updating something, and then there's like 6 Slack messages that then get sent about every update I've made. I'm sure there's a way to do it, because when she does it, it doesn't seem to do this. But when I do it, it does this. And so, I don't know.
100%. I am convinced it is possible to understand how to use Airtable, but I don't. And I think it's hideous and I don't want to use it, which, as the host of the show, makes using Airtable a challenge. So we've kind of veered between, like, when tabs dropped in Google Docs, we started making tabs for every episode and managing it that way. But then when you have a bunch of tabs into Google Doc, it starts to get really heavy and it doesn't sort comments by tab. So it would just show you the number of comments for the whole doc. Like, good feature, poorly implemented in Google Docs. Right now, we're mostly in a Google Sheet because that just seems to be the kind of middle of everybody's Venn diagram of, like, it's nobody's favorite way, but everybody kind of understands how to do a spreadsheet. And so we have basically all of the different segments that we're doing in rows on a spreadsheet, and we track them all that way. It's not perfect, but it works.
It's like, here's a bunch of episodes, here are the topics we might want to put in each episode. You're basically building your content calendar in a Google Sheet.
More or less, yeah. Like, the real truth is, like, our team is pretty small and we just spend all day every day talking to each other. And that is how most things get done. And, like, I am both the problem there in that, like, I'm sort of running around doing so much that I'm not great at documenting everything all the time, but also, like, I would like it to be more beautiful and full of Kanban boards in Notion, but I'm not going to win that fight anytime soon, I don't think.
I think it's particularly difficult for shows that are influenced by the news.
Yeah.
You can't really do a lot of forward planning anyway, and so it becomes complicated to try and have a system like that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think now we do 2 episodes a week on the Vergecast, and on one episode in particular, there's a lot more freedom to do stuff that isn't sort of news of the day stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've tried in the past to like have a Monday morning meeting about the Thursday record of the Vergecast, and we pretty quickly were like, what is the point of this meeting?
Okay.
Like, we're going to eventually sit down and figure out what is the news, and then we will make the Vergecast.
I had just naturally assumed that there was a planning meeting that occurred.
There should be, to be perfectly honest. But I think the truth is, between Nilay and me and our new senior producer, Travis, we just tend to pretty much always be on the same page.
Yeah.
And so we're able to just kind of build the show from scratch a few hours before we record it. And then I think we're getting better at is, again, and it's an effort to like give people more context and help them understand and like explain the story before we start talking about the story. Like our rundowns have gotten much longer than they used to be. For a long time, the Friday Vergecast rundown was just a series of links. And I would put the links in on Thursday morning, and the expectation would be that both Nilay and I would have read all of the links by the time we show up to podcast. And then we would just go. And it is like nuts how unstructured that actually is. And it like relies on the hosts both sort of understanding each other and also being ready to talk about a lot of things at the drop of a hat. We're getting better at being more prepared, in part because Travis is doing a huge amount of work putting stuff together and pulling other information and giving us more reading to do and grabbing context for us and helping sort of signpost segments at the top. So like the length of a rundown has probably like 5x'd in the last 3 months since Travis started, which I think has been very helpful.
So I've actually focused predominantly on the Vergecast, but you have launched a new show called Version History, which is more like the very heavily researched, everyone knows what's going on kind of thing, right? Like you're telling tech stories, basically. It's like true crime, but for tech is how I'm thinking about it, which is
That's
good.
not wrong. Yeah. No, I think of it as like we basically just grabbed a bunch of things that we liked about other podcasts. So like, I don't know if you've ever listened to the podcast, The Rest is History.
I absolutely love The Rest is History.
The Rest is History is amazing. And I think it strikes this balance of like, it is 2 people who have very clearly done all of the work.
For decades. Like they've been doing it forever,
100%. And there's like, the thing that they do that I love is you can never quite tell how detailed their notes are. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, there are a lot of podcasts that I listen to, and I won't name them because I'm about to say mean things about them, where it is people trying to sound extemporaneous, but are very clearly reading from a script. I hate nothing more than that. Like it just immediately takes me out of it when I can hear a sentence that it's like, oh, no person would actually say that. You're reading and trying to sound like you're not reading.
I once went to a live recording of a podcast and they read.
Hate that.
It's like, what am I doing here?
There are lots of people who like those shows. I am not one of them.
Yeah.
But the Rest is History guys do such a good job of like, they're very clearly prepared. And I assume sitting there with thousands of words of notes in front of them.
If you ever watch the YouTube videos, you can see that they have the notes because sometimes you'll see them turning pages. But they're clearly not reading a script, right? But they've got lots and lots and lots of notes.
Right. It's just people talking to each other who are very smart about the thing that they're talking about. And so it's like that vibe, I think it's exactly right. And is the thing we've tried to do. And then there's like, The Rewatchables is a podcast I really like, and the way that they've thought about, okay, how do we structure a conversation around a thing in such a way that the show sort of moves the same way every time, but is completely different every time. It's both a really rigid and a really loose structure all at the same time. So it's like, okay, how do we steal that? And then it was like, okay, how do we take the thing where, like I listened to a rewatch podcast about the show New Girl, because I love New Girl. And it's basically just 2 of the cast members talking about the show, and they go through the episodes. And I think like the Always Sunny podcast is actually maybe the best version of this ever, a show I miss dearly all the time.
Yeah, sad that just ended.
I know. And they would come in and they would tell stories about the episode, and they would like play clips from the episode, and they would remember things about the episode, but then they would also just go off on like wild tangents about things that were going on in their lives and the world at the time, tell stories sort of around it. Like For anybody who didn't watch Always Sunny, two of the main characters are married and like dated in secret while they were making the show for a long time. So like their romance is sort of a through line through a whole chunk of the show. And that kind of thing is like, we're here to talk about a thing that exists that you've seen and experienced, but that we have a different experience with than you do. And we're going to try to put those two things together. And so for us as like tech reporters, like I was there for and have used and have reviewed and have covered, and I know a lot of the people who made a lot of these things. And so trying to like bring our own experience with that to these things. So we basically just like stole a bunch of things we liked about other podcasts. And then we're like, we just want to make a show about old gadgets.
Amazing.
And that is somehow where we landed. And we're recording this before it launches, and I'm extremely nervous about how people are going to feel about the first episodes, but I'm very proud of them, and they've been super fun to make.
I'm really excited about it. Yes, to pull back the curtain, we are recording before it comes out. It will be out, so where can people get it? You should tell people where they can get it.
It's called Verge History. You can either get it on the Verge's YouTube channel, or we're running the first 8 episodes all on the Vergecast's podcast feed, because fun inside baseball, the best and in many ways only way to launch a new podcast is through another podcast. Launching a podcast from scratch is very hard.
It is impossible with any expectation of success, if that makes sense.
Yeah, unless you are vastly more famous than I am. If you already have a gigantic audience of millions of people who will do anything you tell them to, Godspeed, best of luck. You'll have at least, 8 episodes that people listen to. All of which is to say, the best thing you can do for me and Verge History, or for anyone that you like, is go subscribe to their podcast.
Yeah.
Find the feed and subscribe to it. It is like the signal that sends to the algorithms that promote these things and to the people who curate the best of lists. Like, that's the stuff that matters. And that is the thing people are going to spend the next 2 months hearing me yell about really, really loudly.
I mean, I'm just excited there's a new tech podcast, because that just doesn't really happen anymore. It was happening a lot for a long time, but it doesn't really happen anymore.
And I'm really excited to do something that is not timely, right? Like, one of the things we started by doing with this is like, okay, I want to build a library of episodes that you can just drop into at any point and listen to. Like, it's one of the things I like about the Rewatchables and other shows like that. You can just scroll back through and be like, oh, I like that movie. I'm going to listen to that episode. Never mind that it's from 4 years ago. Like, if you listen to a 4-year-old Vergecast episode, which thank God people do, but if you listen to a 4-year-old Vergecast episode, most of it is just going to be nonsense.
Yes.
And so it was fun to go and be like, okay, how do we make something that is sort of deliberately not in the news cycle or dependent on it in any way? It's been very fun to do that.
I think it is good for when people do come to a show for the first time. Maybe it's like they saw someone talk about an episode. It's like, oh, listen, I like this. And then I can go through it. And that was my experience with The Rest is History.
Yes.
I was really recommended to listen to the JFK episodes.
That's where I started too.
But then I've just gone back over time, and I've caught up with all of the series that I care about. And now I listen to stuff that I never thought I would care about.
Right.
But it's all just really well done. And that is the best kind of podcasting.
100%.
This episode of Cortex is brought to you by Incogni. Did you know that data brokers can collect, aggregate, and sell personal information, including names, social security numbers, login credentials, and more? This can lead to annoying spam and honestly more serious issues like identity theft. Thankfully, you can use Incogni. They will reach out to data brokers on your behalf, request your personal data is removed, and deal with any objections from their side to make sure that your privacy is protected. With Incogni, you can protect your privacy in just 3 easy steps. You just create an account, grant them the right to contact data brokers on your behalf, then kick back while they get to work. And if you like to stay up to date with the progress as it's occurring, a user-friendly dashboard provides updates on the status of removal requests. When I signed up for Incogni, I was able to give them the information that I wanted to be removed and say like, hey, there is this information about me that is private. I don't want it to be shared online. I don't want it to be used by these data brokers. And since May of this year, they have removed my information from 97 data brokers. We have just 2 more in progress right now, and I can see an activity log on my dashboard that shows all of these companies, names I would never be able to find myself, companies that to me are completely hidden in the world. All of this information is removed from them. I also love this stat on the Incogni dashboard where it tells you how much time you'd save if you had tried to do this yourself. 73 hours is what is estimated for how long it would have taken me to do these requests. But honestly, I know it would have taken me longer because I don't know what any of these companies are, and I would get really annoyed about the whole process. But you don't have to worry about that with Incogni. Visit incogni.com/cortex and secure your data today. You can sign up and enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy with Incogni and experience peace of mind knowing that your personal information is safe. Take back your personal data with the help of Incogni. Just use the code CORTEX via the link in the show notes and get 60% off an annual plan. Check it out now at Incogni, that's INCOGNI, incogni.com/Cortex. Our thanks to Incogni for their support of this show and Relay. I think you can do a lot about how someone works and thinks by looking at their home screens.
Oh, God.
And I've been very excited for your home screen because you are a man who loves a home screen.
Mm-hmm.
In Installer, you also get people to share your home screens. I've had the
Yep.
pleasure of doing it, which felt really cool. Yours is the most interesting home screen that I've had so far in State of the
Wow.
Workflow, and I was expecting that. There's clearly a lot of thought going into this. So I have some questions.
Okay.
And we'll dig into some apps too. So you're, at the moment, all dark icons. You're on the dark icon train.
I go back and forth on this one. This is actually the thing about my home screen I like the least is the icons. iOS 26 came out. I went to the clear icons for a minute and did not like that at all. That was just like, what if you couldn't find anything? It was like how it felt with the clear icons. I also, for a long time, had custom icons. I found this really great. I think it's called Formless icon pack on Gumroad that I really liked. And so I had them all as like shortcuts, bookmarks, but that got just annoying enough to maintain over time that I kind of bailed. I am permanently on dark mode on my phone. My phone never, ever, ever leaves dark mode. And especially once I had a dark background, this just felt right. But I'm even looking at it now and it is like a few more colors than I would like.
Interesting. Okay. But you still have some custom stuff here. I can see there's some shortcuts on the home screen, like craft and workflowy shortcuts that exist. So I assume
that's right.
You're just tapping those and they're jumping you into places. You're a man who has no time to dig through pages. We're just going to go straight there.
So I have a row on the second page of my home screen of 4 shortcuts. And each one of those opens a text box. And I type in that text box and I hit done, and that text goes where the shortcut tells it to go. So what this actually does is prevent me from having to open an app at all. Because the thing that I've discovered in my many journeys through every note-taking app that exists is all I care about is input. For me, the biggest thing is like the organization tools don't matter. The like beauty of the app is not important. What I need is the thing that gets something out of my head and into whatever system it is the fastest will always win. And it turns out every app is garbage at this. Like the amount of time it takes to put something into Notion is like horrific and everyone should feel bad. And like Obsidian is an app I really love and like believe in at a principles level more than maybe any other app I've used. But if you just have a thought that you want to put into Obsidian, there's too many hoops.
Yep.
But so what I have here is like, if I want to add something to Installer, I just have a page that is just a running list of links and information I want to put in Installer at some point. I have it as a shortcut. So if I'm looking at a link in the browser, I hit that shortcut and it just dumps it as a link onto that page. But I also, if I'm on my home screen, I tap it and it opens up a text box that says, what do you want to add to Installer? And I type like book from Cory Doctorow, which is a real thing that I'm going to add in the next few weeks. And I hit done and it's gone. That's it. And it just dumped it to the top of that list and puts me right back on my home screen. And being able to do that where it's like not only really fast input, but really fast input with sort of that first level of filing has been incredibly helpful. And is like a thing I use 100 times a day now. I generally think Apple shortcuts are awful and way too complicated and a total waste of most people's time and energy. This has been awesome.
I want to make a recommendation for you.
Hit me.
What do you have assigned to your action button on your iPhone?
Oh, right now it's Claude voice mode.
Okay.
I've been goofing around with like personal assistant AI stuff. So right now it's Claude voice mode.
So I have a somewhat similar system for to-do apps to what you're doing.
Okay.
But what I do is I hit the action button, a text box pops up, I type in my task, I hit next, and it's like, where do you want it to go?
Ooh. Oh, I like that.
And the reason I like this is because the action button is available to me no matter where I am. I don't have to leave the app that I'm in. I can do it from the lock screen of my iPhone even. So my recommendation to you is to think about, it starts with a text box and then it gives you a list of like which place do you want it to go to, and then you can send it to each of those places.
You're going to need to send me this shortcut
I would send it to you, but it's so simple because it is essentially here's a shortcut that runs a bunch of shortcuts. So that is how you should set this up,
Sure.
right? I will send you mine so you can see the form of it, but it is very simple.
That is the first good case for the action button I think I've ever heard.
I am a lover of the action button because I use it all day because I have a utility to it.
Do you think the action button's in the wrong place? I think it should be below the volume buttons, not above the volume buttons.
You know what? I actually do agree with you. My thumb is more naturally there. I think the only reason it's there is because that's where the silent switcher was, right? It's like the only reason, which is that is one of those weird product decisions of you put something somewhere because something else was there that is completely unrelated to the thing that is now what it is.
Right. You didn't touch the silencer button 100 times a day.
And actually the point was never to touch it, really.
Right,
like for me, it's like I turned that on and just left it there. Like I never unsilenced my iPhone.
This is one of those like low stakes things that bothers me about the iPhone. So I'm glad that's not just me.
Using Notion Calendar.
Yes.
Do you like it?
Sure. I think what I would say is it is the least bad calendar app on the iPhone for my purposes. It's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job of what I need my calendar to do, which is just like a quick at a glance view of what's coming up. There are a bunch of things it's missing. I think it doesn't do natural language as well as an app like Fantastical, which I used for a really long time. It's a little finicky to like move stuff around on it. But like most of the time, what I need from my calendar is I want to open up my calendar and just get like a rough sense of what's coming up. And the like 2-day view on Notion Calendar does that really well.
Yeah.
I think Notion Calendar on desktop is terrific. I love it on desktop. It's fine on mobile.
Fantastical has totally broken me. I cannot imagine a calendar app without proper natural text language input.
It is one of the single best features of any app on the iPhone. I really sincerely believe that.
Like where I've even internalized the little shortcuts that you can do to like add it to a certain calendar and that kind of stuff. It's just how I think about entering a calendar appointment. But I do have Notion Calendar. I use it with my personal assistant because it allows us to pull a bunch of stuff together because we use Notion together and dates are put on things in Notion. And so it helps to see not only appointments, but also tasks and due dates for certain projects. They're all in one app, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah. I think the more you use Notion, the more Notion Calendar makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think Notion is feature-wise an essentially perfect piece of software. I just don't enjoy using Notion, and so I don't use it all that much.
Yeah.
But if you are a person who is running your life out of Notion databases, just the way that it interacts with Notion Calendar is very clever, and I like it a lot. Fantastical just got too heavy for me.
They went a bit corporate.
Maybe that is what it was.
There are many apps that they become subscriptions and then they become SaaS companies. And I think that's kind of the route that Fantastical took.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you're probably right.
Reminders, I notice. Is that your task? All your tasks go in Apple Reminders?
Again, this is an input thing. I use Siri to dictate reminders constantly.
Okay.
For any time-based task, the input is almost always Siri. And it's like, I'm on a walk with the dog and just want to shout it into my Apple Watch, or I'm like in the middle of doing something else and I just need to like quickly pull out my phone and do it, or I'm wearing headphones and I just want to do it without even pulling out my phone. Like Todoist is my favorite to-do list app by a mile, but it doesn't integrate with reminders, which meant that I always had tasks living in two places, which ironically is the reason I used Fantastical for a long time, because it's the only app that will show my calendar events, my reminders, and my Todoist tasks all in one place. That's great. But I just eventually churned out a Fantastical. I think reminders, is a really unattractive app, but does have all the features that I require. And again, one of the other apps you saw on my home screen is this app called Remind Me Faster. And what that does is really good natural language input for reminders. The worst thing about the reminders app is if you want to attach any other kind of information, like a due date or a time or repeating, the interface for that is horrific in reminders. With Remind Me Faster, you just write out what it is and it dumps it into reminders. And so reminders is to some extent kind of like a syncing engine for all of my tasks, just to make sure that things notify me when they're supposed to. But at this point, I don't have another dedicated to-do list app because 6 out of 10 tasks that go on my list go through Siri. And it just started to seem ridiculous to not just use the app that Siri dumps them all into.
I mean, the most important thing about tasks is we're actually recording them. So if you found a way to record the tasks, then that's the most important part.
And frankly, when I have just like a running to-do list, I'm bad at checking it. And so at this point, I kind of don't write something down to do without putting a time or date on it. For so many years, I had one of those like someday maybe or like anytime to-do lists, and they're just a waste. Like I'm sure they work for some people. My overwhelming failure with all productivity systems is I'm bad at reviewing. Like the weekly review is just not a thing I'm good at doing in a disciplined way. And so I've just sort of rebuilt systems to make my notes and tasks confront me all the time. And so like I have things in fewer places so that like my list of stuff is much longer because I want to look at it 50 times a day, because then it will make me remember the things that I have to do. And it's the same with reminders. Like I would much rather get notifications for things that I don't technically have to do right this minute than have to go check a thing every time I want to remember what I need to do.
Yeah, we are exactly the same.
Have you ever tried to be a person who like sat down on a Sunday night and like did a really beautiful weekly review?
It sounds great.
I want to be that person.
I would love to be that person. What I know will happen is those tasks will just be lost to history.
100%.
They're gone now forever, unless I am confronting myself on a weekly basis of moving a task, and then at a certain point I'd be like, okay, I'm not going to do this, so it's going to be removed now.
Yeah. And there were so many times where I would move from to-do list app to to-do list app, and I would just move the same set of 6-month-old tasks I hadn't looked at into the new app and then not look at them for 6 more months until I moved them to another. And I got to this point where I was like, what is the point of this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm genuinely not accomplishing a single thing by moving all of these tasks around.
I noticed you have Arc in your dock.
Yeah.
I feel bad for people using Arc.
I feel bad for me too. I still think Arc is the best browser, and I am slowly coming to grips with the fact that I don't think it'll be around forever. The browser company, I've gotten to know Josh Miller, their CEO, fairly well over the years. He is adamant that Arc is not going away. They sold the company to Atlassian. They swear Atlassian has a plan for Arc. Arc is going to be fine. I don't believe it. I am counting down the days until Arc stops working.
He may believe it.
That's the thing. I think he's serious. I just think he's wrong.
I think at a certain point, he's not going to be the person who makes the decision anymore. That is just how these things go.
Correct. And I think it'll be easy to replace Arc on my phone. Like I kind of think desktop browsers are much more varied and mobile browsers are kind of a dime a dozen. So I'll probably land back in Safari or Chrome, or I think Vivaldi is developing in some really interesting ways. I used the Quiche browser for a while, which I really like.
It's an insane name for a web browser.
It's an insane name, but it's actually a really lovely browser.
I mean, not that any of them are good. Safari is a hilariously weird name, like when you actually think about it.
I know.
I never really think of the web as like a wildlife expedition or whatever.
No. But I'll tell you, this is the strangest thing for me. The reason I keep using Arc on mobile is because it syncs my tabs from desktop, and that's useful. The reason I keep using Arc on desktop is because it hides the address bar on the left. Like the whole appeal left of Arc for me is the aesthetic of it. The way that it looks, where I'm in this super clean window with everything. I have my address bar, I have the favorites, I have my bookmarks, and I have my active tabs just in a rail on the left side, and everything else is content. Every other browser looks like clutter to me because it doesn't work that way.
Have you heard the good news of Microsoft Edge?
Yes, because every time you use Microsoft Edge, you get 400 pop-ups that are like, do you want to use this other Microsoft product? Like, this is the thing that kills me. Microsoft built an excellent browser and then ruined it by promoting other Microsoft products. And I hate using that browser, even though it did everything right. Because like Microsoft shipped its org chart in a way that I find totally gross inside that app.
I can't believe that Microsoft is still trying to get individual users to make decisions. Like, we all have to use Microsoft products. Like,
you won, Microsoft.
You don't need to convince me. Like, I don't have a choice. You can't make me be like, oh man, I really want to use Teams. Teams will be forced upon me. That's just life. Yeah. Like, I don't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, like you're born, you die, and you give Microsoft $100 a year. Like, that's what we do. No one's happy about it, but it's fine.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the State of the Workflow series on the Cortex podcast. I really enjoyed talking with David, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. If you want more, you can go to getmoretext.com where you'll get a longer ad-free version of the show. This time, me and David talk about a bunch of things that we're enjoying. David is a professional person who loves stuff, just like me. We're both enthusiasts. We love the things that we love. We spoke about Installer. I asked him for some recommendations, and we end up at some point just having a recommendation off. So if you want some suggestions of cool stuff that you can enjoy right now, go to getmoretext.com. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.